In today's vlog, my friends, we are going live over to the island of Tenerife to speak to Timothy Dowd and his wife Christine. Now, Timothy is a videographer, a 360-degree photographer, a magician. He's also got his own podcast, which I'm going to ask him about, because he's going to be speaking to people on the island of Tenerife. He's also an all-round nice guy. Now, I'm going to ask him questions that we want to know, because he is in the know. I'm going to ask him questions like, when can we get back out to the island of Tenerife? When we get out there, will there be any restrictions? Will there be any quarantine? When are the bars opening? When are the restaurants opening? Are the beaches open yet? All these questions and many more. But before we dive in, remember, like, subscribe, click that little bell for notifications of when I upload new videos. Follow me on Instagram, which is down there. Now, without further ado, let's go. Hi Tim, how you doing?
I'm fine, thanks Lee. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. How's the weather over there in Tenerife?
Well, it's the same as it always is, except it's a little bit hazy today. I'll give you a quick shot of that.
Oh, look at that. Oh, you're teasing me now. You can see the sea from where you are.
Yes, my flat is about 200 yards away from the beach.
Oh, you're making me jealous. You're making me jealous. Stop it. You do a bit of magic. Can you make me appear over there in a second?
Unfortunately, all I do is illusion, and I can do that no problem. But
Anyway, let's dive right in. First of all, for my viewers who haven't seen you before, they should go back actually and look at the magic. What was it called? The magic of Costa. The magic
Adeje.
of Adeje village, I think it was. Wasn't
That's
it?
right. That's right.
You
Yeah.
should go back and look at that. But anyway, you tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, basically, I'm Tim Dowd. I'm nearly 60. I'll be 60 this year. And we've been living in Tenerife since 2014. I'm married to Christine. She's actually, her name is actually spelled Christine, but because she's German, she pronounces it Christina with the E on the end. So we've been here, as I say, since 2014. But before that, we've been married nearly 35 years.
Wow.
And
You're originally from?
I was born in Earlham in Manchester, but I don't remember it because we moved to Prestwich when I was a little small. So North Manchester.
And Christine?
She's Bavarian, southern Germany.
Ah, Bavarian is where BMW is based, isn't it?
Bavarian Motorwork, that's what BMW stands for.
That's it, there you go. I wonder how many...
It's actually Bayerischer Motorwerk, which is Bavarian is Bayerisch in Bavarian.
Okay.
That's why it's called Bayern München and not Bavarian München.
Ah, well, you got some very nice footage the other day of Costa Adeje, so thank you for that. It was really, really nice.
I was thinking of you there because I went down to have a look and I thought, my gosh, this is something. And I tried to FaceTime you, but obviously you were busy. But I thought, well, I'll get that anyway. And I was trying out my gimbal. I've got one of these Osmo Mobile 3. Huh? Not sponsored.
Don't be telling me things like that because I'll have to get one, and I'm not buying any more equipment.
If you buy it here, it's only $80.
Ah, right. Well,
because I get we have a lower tax rate here. We have IGIC, which is only 7%, and if you buy it in Spain, it's 21%. I don't know what the VAT is in Britain. 24, is it?
It's 20% now, I think it is.
20%. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a lot less over there. So why did you move?
Yeah.
When did you move to Tenerife, and why?
When did I move to Tenerife and why? I've got to go back a little bit further just to set the scene. I was a manager for a communications manager for a big company, and I was sent all over the world. And so Christina and I and our daughter Stephanie have lived basically everywhere. And I was traveling a lot. And when Christina got ill, back in 1993 was the first sort of like things were going wrong, and they didn't diagnose it till 2000. But 1993. She started getting problems. So I was out and about, and then all of a sudden she's getting worse and worse and worse, and she couldn't end up looking after herself. So we decided I decided to retire early. So I retired at 54, sold everything, and came over in 2014. I was actually 53 at the time. I was 54 when we arrived. And that's why we decided on Tenerife, mainly because it's the same weather all year round.
Always nice, always sunny there.
It is, yeah. I mean, you might get the odd day where it's a bit cloudy, but it's still warm. You don't get the changes in weather like you do in certain places. In Bavaria, for instance, you could have one day which is 30 degrees, the next day is down to 18, you know, so
wow.
You can get winds.
Whereabouts in Tenerife do you live?
Well, if you know Tenerife South and you know Los Cristianos, Las Americas, Costa Adeje, well, Costa Adeje actually extends further than La Caleta. It's the coast of the municipality Adeje. And so we live on the Costa Adeje, but it's not the resort of Costa Adeje. If you walk to La Caleta, there is a little sort of stony walk to the hippie beach that you can go further. And then you come up to a bit of a rugged area. Then there's a place called El Puertito, which is where it's famous for the turtles, where you can swim with the turtles. And there's one bar there, which opens every other day, I think. And then the next village is a place called Playa Paraiso, or Paradise Beach. And it's famous now because the new Hard Rock Hotel was built there. In fact, if I turn you around like that, those two high-rise flats are actually blocking the two high-rise flats behind them, which is the Hard Rock Hotel.
Oh, all right. Excellent.
So we're the next village over the plantation to that. So those people who've been to Hard Rock Hotel, we're the next village over. It's called Callao Salvaje. And a lot of the Brits call it Callao because it's easier to say. But it's actually Callao. And Salvaje means savage. And Callao is, well, it can either be a stone or a cove. So I'm assuming it's a sort of means a cove. So we are Savage Cove, which is this cove down here.
Oh, nice. Nice. Oh, it looks lovely. You've got a swimming pool down there as well.
Yeah, we live in a complex of, I think, is 8 buildings. Each building's got 20 units in it. And two of the buildings are rental accommodation only. The rest are owned. And the guy who built this had some deal with the tax guy that if he made 2 buildings available to low rent for locals for long term, then they get some tax break on the rest. So we actually pay a low rent here because we pay for 12 months at a time.
Now then, where is your favourite resort in Tenerife and why?
Well, that's really weird because we only started coming to Tenerife in 2012. So it's actually 2 years before we moved here. But we came 6 times in that 2 years to find a place. And we always stayed at the Sheraton in La Caleta. And the reason I did that is because I wanted a little bit of luxury and the Sheraton looked good. It was on right at the end of the Maritime Walkway, so we could go out the back door, turn left, and walk to Los Cristianos if we wanted to. And it was also so far out that it wasn't the sort of Veronica's disco type thing, which we weren't interested in anymore. So I would say the Del Duc area, the La Caleta, Playa de Enramada, and that area is my favourite. It's a bit select, a little bit upmarket, not too expensive, but has everything you need. And if you want to go down to the thick of it, you're only 20 minutes away on foot.
I know I didn't know anything about La Caleta actually until I met you when we did that video together.
Okay.
And then I did a walk down to there, and I have to say that's that's my favourite place down there now. It's lovely, really nice, totally different feel to it to Los Cristianos and Las Americas. Very quiet and quaint, I thought.
I think that if you get out of the main drag down the bottom, you would be surprised. I mean, we have lots to offer now. The Ayuntamiento in Adeje, the town hall, and the council, they're actually getting mountain walks ready with guides, so you can actually do mountain walking. We have people flying in to do bike trials So using the mountain roads as bicycle trials. We've got a great tourist industry that is pushing, let's say, short, high-powered holidays, like 4 days, and you jump 15 times from a mountain on your paraglider. So it's, in fact, since the lockdown now, we've lost quite a lot of all that, which is a shame. But Adeje especially is going for slightly different than sun, sea and sangria holidays now.
What has life been like in lockdown for you? Has it been any more difficult with Christine having MS, and has Christine had to isolate because of it?
Well, I didn't tell her she couldn't go out. she likes staying in, you know. I mean, with the MS, I mean, she's fine. She really is fine. She just has physical disabilities, you know. So she can't see very well. She's deaf in one ear. She can't walk. So she likes doing stuff with me. And she even prefers the lockdown because I don't go out as much.
She enjoys more you being there more than, does she?
Exactly.
That's the opposite to my girlfriend. She prefers me being out.
Yeah. No, I like going out in the afternoons, but you know, I go out and do a little bit of magic and I do some filming and stuff. But now I'm staying home most days. But when you live here, you know what's not to like.
Are you enjoying Tenerife more without the hustle and bustle of the holidaymakers?
I would say no. I mean, I didn't used to go out at night anyway, and if I did go out at night, it was local. But during the day, I miss the afternoons. So I did like going down to the Sun King on Playa Las Vistas, and also Los Cristianos. I would go down there quite often, and I'd always meet somebody new. I'd always meet somebody interesting, and so I miss that actually. On the other hand, the environment's getting better. You know, we got a lot less usage of people, although I do see extra masks and plastic gloves on the street these days.
I'm going to ask you the question that everybody has probably asked you that live in the UK. When do you think, well, it's not just the UK, because obviously I've got viewers from around the world, but when do you think as holiday makers and travellers are going to be allowed back on the island of Tenerife?
Okay, now you do have to go to which country you're coming from. We have a plan in place. It's a 3-phase plan of opening up. And a lot of people are interpreting the 3-phase plan slightly differently. But I think what's known here and what I see on the Spanish news and in the Spanish newspapers, which hasn't been translated yet, is that we're looking at accepting tourists maybe after the middle of June. But that does not mean cheap flights from Heathrow or wherever you come from. That means the tourists that we have coming in will probably be Spanish tourists and probably from the mainland Spain. I think international tourism at the moment is planned to be open at the middle of September, but is dependent on lots of factors and dependent on whether Sanchez can get the extensions through. Because he's fighting at the moment. If you don't know, in Spain, there's sort of a coalition going on. There's always a coalition going on. At the moment, the socialists are sort of in power, but they do need certain factions to be able to carry votes. So there's a bit of trouble. That's why you hear things like the lockdown is only for 2 weeks. Well, it is only for 2 weeks because that's the law. But in 2 weeks' time, we lock down again. I reckon. Weeks. Yeah, the short answer is we can start, I think, October and through to December. So between October and December, you should be able to come back. Now, if then you in the UK are able to meet the criteria to come, then that's in your court. You know, you've got to be able to have some sort of tracking app, some sort of health passport, and that isn't decided yet, so nobody knows. But
yeah. all of these airlines like TUI and Jet2 are saying we're going to start flights again in July. They're getting well ahead of themselves.
I think what they do is they live on the deposit that you pay. So that's why they don't cancel the flight until nearly the death, because they don't want to be insolvent by giving you back your money, because that money's gone to do stuff when you paid it, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a Ponzi scheme, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you paid your deposit, that deposit doesn't wait there until you fly. You know, they use that money straight away, so they don't have your money. So they've got to sell flights to be able to give you your money back.
So that's why they will reintroduce flights in July. Then they put it forward to June, July.
Well, they're encouraging you to book a holiday, and then with a booking a holiday, you've got to put a deposit in, and then the deposit they can use to pay somebody back whose flight's cancelled.
So, would your advice to people looking at booking flights, because I've had people saying, I might book for July, August, to just hold off?
I don't want to give that advice. I mean, if it's my personal advice, I would wait until the hotel's open before booking anything. If you're booking a package holiday, you're not booking it with a hotel. You're booking it with a company. Then that company's taking a risk, and you're taking a risk, I would say. But if it's atoll protected or
yeah,
then basically your money's going to be fairly safe. But again, you're not going to get it back until they cancel it. So
I think people are just getting excited and eager to get over there. So, as I am myself, we've now got in the UK a 14-day quarantine period for when you come back in, which doesn't really make any sense, because if you think about it, you fly back into London, say, you get on the tube, then you get on the bus, get in a taxi, and then you go to quarantine after you've been past 3,000 different people. So it doesn't make any sense to me.
I think what happened was, it's like the quarantine here. We went into lockdown on the 15th of March, and that was basically don't go out. It wasn't try not to go out. It was like don't go out. And then they said, but if you need to go and get essential food, you can go out. Or if you need to walk your dog within 100 metres of your house. So there were some exceptions to the quarantine, but basically the quarantine was don't go out. Phase 1 started on the 11th of May. And that meant that you could now go out and do exercises and meet people as long as you stay 2 meters apart. You could go to a bar. I was in a bar yesterday. There, the 2 meter rule is between the tables, so the people you on the table with. But then they said, okay, but if anybody coming into the country has got to be 14-day quarantine. And the theory behind that is that everybody was 14-day quarantine. Anyway, everybody was in that 14-day quarantine in phase 0. So now once you arrive in the country, you've got to self-isolate for 14 days before you can take advantage of phase 1 freedoms. And I think that's what they're thinking behind it.
Right. Are there any talks of restrictions when people come back into the country of Tenerife? So say we come back, what restrictions are we going to have?
Well, as I say, the restrictions will be blanket, so they won't be, if you're a tourist, you'd only do this, and if you're local, you can do that. There will be any restrictions that we have, you'll have. And at the moment, we have the phase 2 restrictions, and we're hoping to go, we don't, we have the phase 1. We're hoping to go to phase 2 on Monday, and then phase 3 is around about middle of June. So whatever the restrictions are in Spain at that time will be applied to anybody who wants to come or is already here. So it's mostly common sense. If there's still no vaccine, or if the second wave has arrived or something like that, then it'll be distance, wash your hands. It's basic stuff like that.
How do you see businesses carrying on, and how are they doing without all the tourists being there? I mean, they must be struggling, and some of them must be going back. I've seen the Rum Pot, I think it was, they've gone now. I mean, it's really going to affect businesses if they've not got tourists going over there, surely.
Well, I was talking, basically, I recorded a podcast actually yesterday with Cleo, who works in the town hall in Adeje, and we discussed this, and she gave me some facts and figures that I can give you now. The drop in GDP since the lockdown has been about 35%. So tourism in the Canary Islands counts for 35% of the GDP here. So it's a real big hit. Of that 35% GDP, I think maybe 45% of that 35% is British tourists, so they make up a large section. The rest of the island is carrying on the same as any other country, so it's not as if we're dying here. But the tourist industry is a third of our GDP. What will happen with the individual businesses depends on how they were running before the lockdown. Now, if they were running a little bit sort of like dodgily, don't pay the tax or not declaring everything or getting workers in that weren't sort of quite legal, then they didn't get any help at the beginning because they were paid based on what they declared. So if they were declaring half their earnings, then they only got 80% of half their earnings. So it could be that they might not survive, but the businesses that were fully legal, and I think they should be able to survive as long as they weren't living hand to mouth originally.
Yeah.
Then it should be okay.
They've had help from the government anyway, haven't they? But like you say, the ones that have been working dodgily, not so.
Help has been given to everybody, but not everybody's received it yet. So some of the workers in the bars were promised 80% of their wages, and everybody said, yeah, great, but they still haven't received it. That means they're waiting until the middle of June now for their first payment. Jeez. So they've been living on winging a prayer and charity for the last 3 months.
Do you see prices?
2 months.
Do you see prices increasing?
That's another question that we discussed yesterday. It was basically the offer of a holiday is going to have to change. If you're flying half the amount of people over in an aeroplane, then your prices for the aeroplane flights are going to be twice as much. And Adeje and Arona haven't built any 3-star hotels for the past 8 years. So that means they want to offer a better quality of holiday, but obviously then that's going to be more expensive. And as you said, some of the smaller businesses might have gone to the wall for reasons of they were living hand to mouth anyway.
Yeah.
And even with the help from the government, they probably couldn't survive. But on the other hand, a lot of the other, so just to say, a lot of the other hotels have used this time to renovate, so they might even be going up a star.
That's probably the best idea actually for them to do that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the end of the €1 pint? I think that's what a lot of my viewers will ask.
The reason we had a €1 pint is because the place was flooded. So there was the islands are full, right? Or were full, and there was lots of businesses vying for those bums on seats, and so the less number of bars that are going to be open, the less necessity there is to put a dumping price on the beer. So yes, I think you might see the end of it. Could
change Tenerife forever, maybe in a different way, not so much of a bad way, but it might just make it a little bit more upmarket in places.
I think that was the plan anyway, that we wanted to go upmarket. We wanted to get away from the sort of Veronica's beer and chips type of holiday. Yeah. And it was a slow thing. Not that they didn't like that. It's just that people who've been here 30 years ago as students and getting drunk in Veronica's, we wanted to bring them back with their families now. Yeah. So we want to offer them a better quality holiday. And if we can get less people but a bigger spend per visitor, then we can keep our GDP high without the islands being full. And the other thing we could do then is pay our people the correct price. Because to get $1 a pint, you've got to be served by a slave, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, yeah.
They come in and they get a 10-hour contract, but they're asked to work 20 hours.
I have to say, I do agree with you. I personally think it's I think it's a changing period for Tenerife. I think it'll be a different place after this when we eventually get back to flying again.
Well, when I was a kid, 60s, BOAC. You couldn't go to Torremolinos if you weren't a business owner's son.
I've got another question for you, a little bit more light-hearted. Living on such a wonderful island like Tenerife, where do you go for holidays?
To tell you the truth, I visit Germany. I visit southern Germany, and we go every 2 or 3 years. Well, every second year it used to be, but now it's 3 years coming up. We're going a year. June is the next planned holiday. And we go to a little town called Regensburg, and it's on the northernmost point of the Danube. And we got friends and family there, but it is a wonderful town. The sights, the sounds, the food, the beer, of course, the beer gardens. So we always go in June, end of June, and it's our wedding anniversary. So we're going for our wedding anniversary next year.
Oh, nice. What's your favourite, this is not on the list actually, but what's your favourite bar over there in Tenerife for a beer?
Okay, for me, it's the local bar. I have to walk down to the village, and it's not actually on the main strip. It's above a supermarket and down past a little Indian place. There's a bar called Monte Cristo, and the young lad owns it, and his wife, and they run it, and it's full of locals. But we also get passing trade from the people who like to look round corners and stuff. So I like going down to Monte Cristo.
Oh, excellent. But what about your favourite one in Las Americanas and Las Americanas Los Cristianos?
Well, because I go to every bar, as you know, doing my magic and stuff, I don't really have a favourite per se. But the one I'm in most is the Sun King on Playa Las Vistas.
Yeah.
And it's because it's set back slightly, and there's like a little piazza in front of it, and there's like 4 or 5 bars and a McDonald's on that strip.
Yes.
And so I can watch the world go by there. So I like that place there.
Excellent. Finally, what's the first thing that you're looking forward to when all the restrictions are lifted?
To go back performing some of the wonderful tourists that come to our island to enjoy their holidays.
No, that's a good answer. Now then, also, you've told me you've got a podcast. Now, this is quite interesting because you interview local people from Tenerife and people to do with Tenerife. So can you tell me a bit more about that? Because this might be quite interesting for people to subscribe to your podcast and get the latest information on Tenerife. So tell me a little bit about it.
Okay, so the original idea of the podcast was to interview holidaymakers and then for them to become the star of the podcast. So I was going to go around the bars of Los Cristianos and Las Americas, make friends with somebody, sit down and interview them, and then put them out, maybe do 2 or 3 interviews during the week, and then put it all together as a conglomerate and then publish it on a Sunday. Of course, that all went through the roof by lockdown. So I'd got all the gear and got everything set up, but nothing ever happened. So I thought, well, how am I going to do this? So I ended up interviewing myself for the first one. Then somebody who lives over there, in fact, liked the podcast and said, well, I'd like to be on it. So I interviewed her. It was Juliani Nendel. She's a life coach here in Tenerife. And she, I wanted to ask her about what it's like here living, the same as you're doing to me, basically. And she told me about her life. And then this week I'm doing Cleo, who lives over there. But we did it all by Skype.
Yeah.
And she works for the town hall, as I said, and she's got the know. She's also got a podcast, which is English Time, which goes out on the radio here as well. So it's a recorded radio show. And she's doing another podcast with a woman called Janet Anscombe. I think a lot of you people will know Janet Anscombe as the be-all and end-all news anchor for the English language here in Tenerife. And if you don't, we put a link to her as well.
Okay.
Janet Anscombe. She's got all the inside scoops about living here and working here as a Brit, basically.
How can they find you? How can they find your podcast? I'll put the link in the description. But
you can find my podcast on any of the big podcast things. It's on Apple. It's on Spotify. You can even ask Alexa to play it. It's hosted in a place called Buzz Sprout. Buzz like a bee, sprout like a sprout.
Yeah.
And it's called Aftcast. It's like forecast, but aft instead. So AFT cast.
Okay.
Aftcast Tenerife. And the actual name is Aftcast Tenerife Afternoons. But at the moment, I've only got like 3 episodes up. And the 4th one's coming this Sunday. And I believe that I've actually got you the week after, have I?
You have. Don't send me the questions prior, just hit me with the questions, you know.
Okay.
And surprise me with them.
They'll be totally different questions.
Well, I think that's all the questions that I've got. You're going to have to say hi to Christine for me.
I definitely will. So she sends her apologies, but she's indisposed at the moment.
That's all right. Well, I think out of this conversation and interview, if I was anybody, I'd be waiting a little time to book a holiday. I think personally, it's going to be September to December time before we get back. Personally, I'm thinking the latter part of the year now.
A month's a long time in politics, they say. So I think wait and see is a good option.
It is. Well, thank you very much. Are you going for a beer now, or...?
Actually, I'm not going out today. I went out yesterday, so I'm not allowed out 2 days on the trot. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to cook a wonderful homemade curry. I'm making dum aloo, which is like a potato and cashew nut curry. I'm making a dal, which is like a lentil, very hot curry. And I'm making my own naan bread. So I'll take a picture of it, send it to you.
Can you Deliveroo one over for me? Is that all right? And I'm not sponsored by Deliveroo.
if you get smelly vision, I can waft it over to you.
I'm going to put all your links in the description below, because you've got Facebook, you've also got your YouTube channel, which I'm going to put your YouTube channel in there, and you've got your podcast. So I'll put all of your links in there in the description below, so they can get to you and follow you. I think the podcast sounds really good, so I'd highly recommend that, and get on there and subscribe to your podcast. So
if you want to be part of the podcast, not you personally, but if your viewers want to be part of the podcast through Skype, to just tell their story about Tenerife in a little 5 or 10 minute snippet, then tell them to get in touch on my website, timothydowd.com/LWMST, and we'll organise a time. I'll Skype you. We'll only do the audio, so you don't need to put your makeup on.
There we go. There you go. So that's it. Get in touch with Tim, and you can be on his podcast and tell your story about Tenerife. That's brilliant. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I'll see you at some point in the next year.
You're welcome anytime, and next time you come over, I'll bring you up for a pint on the deck.
Oh, that sounds great. Perfect. Just one?
We might have a fridge full.
That's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so there you go. That was Tim Dowd over there in Tenerife. Now, I have got some shout-outs and some photographs of people wearing my merch. So, don't go away. So, I've got a shout-out here to Archie and Evelyn from Glasgow. So, hi there, Archie and Evelyn from Glasgow. We've got Stuart and Denise McCleary. And then we've got Rob Charlesworth. How are you doing, Rob? We've got Dewey Orchard. Hello, Dewey Orchard. What a nice name that is. We've also got Lindsay Maguire. Hi, Lindsay. And we've got David McNaughton, who's going to Tenerife for their honeymoon. We've also got Paul and Louise. On the 29th of May, it is their 16th wedding anniversary. So, and apparently Paul is always saying, let's go when they go out for a walk. So, let's go. Come on, Paul. And then we've also got Darren Lane, whose handle is Frosty Glass. I've mentioned him in some vlogs before. Well, here's a picture of Darren in his McMaster t-shirt. Here we go. Looking good there, Darren. Excellent. And everybody likes a Frosty Glass. And then we've got Jonathan Abercrombie's girlfriend, Jade, who's bought one of the McMaster Special Edition Tenerife t-shirts. And here's a picture of Jade in my McMaster t-shirt with me in the background on the TV there. There you go. Looking good there, Jade. Absolutely superb. Thank you for supporting the channel. Anyway, that is all the shout outs. Remember, like, subscribe, click that little bell for notifications of when I upload new videos. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, which is down there. And all I can say is stay positive we will get back out to the island of Tenerife. We've just got to keep that light at the end of the tunnel. Anyway, that's all from me today. And until next time, goodbye.